Oh hi. Dublin, the city county in Ireland, the capital of the country, is in the administrative county Dublin, province of Leinster. It is located on the place of confluence of the River Liffey with the Dublin Gulf of the Irish Sea. The biggest city on the island of Ireland and in the Republic, occupying nearly 115 km. The main port of the country located at the coast of the Irish Sea. Main center of political, economic and cultural life of the country. The name Dublin arose at merge of the Irish-English derivative. Historically, in the traditional Gaelic letter used in Irish, Abecha was written with a point over B, that is Dulin or Dulin. French-speaking Normans lowered a point and wrote down the name differently as Devlin. Some sources doubt authenticity of this version of origin of a word, and assume that the word Dublin has the Scandinavian origin, namely Djuplind, Deep Creek.
However, Dublin was called by Dublin since the 8th century before the Norwegian Vikings for the first time appeared at coast of Ireland, and therefore, the Scandinavian version of origin of the word Dublin by very few people is considered seriously.
The modern name of the city is written in modern Irish as Béal Athacliath. Settlement at the ford. At Cliath, the toponym referring to point of fording through the River Liffey near the Houston Station. Béal of Achiclia, so called the early Christian monastery which is believed, was located near Angier Street where today there is street. Valentine's Church. Because of name length the city is called sometimes just by back. The modern city keeps mixed Anglo-Irish and original Irish names. The Act of Place Names of Ireland adopted in 1973 recognizes validity of both names. Letters of the Greek astronomer and the cartographer Ptolemaeus, probably some of the first report about the area inhabited by people, known as Dublin now. Approximately in 140 our era Ptolemaeus mentioned the Celtic settlement which he called Ablanacivitas. According to these messages, the settlement already stood still modern Dublin, though the city and fortifications were put by Scandinavians considerably later, approximately in 841. So Dublin became a stronghold of the small kingdom of Vikings on the island. In spite of the fact that they were expelled from Dublin in 902 by local tribes, all of them equally returned, but in 917. Almost in 100 years, in 1014, in fight at Clontarf, Vikings suffered crushing defeat from the Celtic king Brian to Bor. Kings of Vikings began to pursue the policy of the unions and agreements with the local Celtic tribes which allowed them to hold the power throughout more than 3 centuries. Dublin became a stronghold of the English power in Ireland in 1169 when the English troops under Henry II Plantagenet's leadership intruded on the island. They rather quickly subdued Wexford and stormed without special work fortress city Dublin. Henry II was recognized as the Pope as the Lord of Ireland and in 1171 proclaimed Dublin the royal city. For a long time many of Anglo-Norman conquerors were absorbed by the Irish culture, accepting Irish, adopting customs and doing business, leaving small area around Dublin known as Pale. With English. A fencing. To the submitting English monarch. After Anglo-Norman invasion, many of the Scandinavian descendants of residents left the old city, which was on south side of the river Liffey, and constructed own strengthening on the north side known as Osmantown or Oxmantown. Dublin becomes the residence of His Eminence of Ireland since 1171 and quickly is replenished with settlers from England and Wales.
The rural area around the city as the far north as Drogheda also saw extensive English settlement. In the 14th century, this area was more and more torn away from indigenous Irish. In Dublin, the English government was in the Dublin Castle. The city was also the place of Parliament of Ireland, which was made of representatives of the English community in Ireland. Important buildings which remained witnesses of that era include St. Patrick's Cathedral, Christchurch Church and St. Audun's Church, located from each other within kilometre.
In 1348 the city was struck with Black Death epidemic of the bubonic plague in the middle of the 14th century, which strongly reduced the population of Europe.
In Dublin, victims of a disease were buried in Massachusetts graves in the field of still carrying the name, Black Pits, or Black Graves. Plague regularly visited the city before the last flash in 1649. The city was the arena of infinite wars and distempers that led to noticeable reduction of number of local population. In 1314 the intruded Scottish troops burned city suburbs. As the interest of England in maintenance of the Irish colony it is noticeable, protection of Dublin was charged to columns Fitzgeraldum, to columns Kildare, which dominated in the Irish policy till the 16th century. However, this dynasty often pursued own interests. In 1487, during War of the Scarlet and White Rose, Fitzgerald occupied the city by means of the Burgundian mercenaries and proclaimed the King of England Lambert Simnel.
In 1536, the same dynasty led by Silk Thomas Fitzgerald, dissatisfied with Garrett Fitzgerald's disgrace, the column of Kildare besieged the Dublin castle.
Henry VIII sent big army to crush Fitzharold and to replace them with the English administrators. It was the beginning of relatives, though not always a happy relationship between Dublin and the English crown. The dynasty of the Tudor dynasty made the strengthened attempts to subordinate to itself all Ireland.
While the Old English community of Dublin and the Pale area was a shire.
Gain and disarmament of indigenous Irish, those in turn became alien to Protestant transformations which took place in England. In 1592 the Queen Elizabeth I founded the Trinity College, located at the time outside the city on its east outskirts, as the Protestant university for the Irish nobility. However, rich clans of Dublin rejected an opportunity to train there the children and instead sent them to the Catholic universities on the continent.
As a result of an intense relationship, the English authorities undertook a number of transformations to impose to the Catholic majority of the country the requirements.
New British, the English envoys became foundation of the English administration in Ireland till the 19th century.
In the 1640 years, thousands of Protestants rushed to Dublin to avoid the Irish Revolt of 1641.
As a result, Protestants became the majority in Dublin. When later the Irish Catholic forces began to threaten the city, Catholics were moved from the city. Dublin was besieged twice during the Irish Federal Wars, in 1646 and 1649. However, in both cases of attackers banished still before the long siege could begin. In 1649, the integrated forces of the Irish Allies and English Royalists were broken by the English parliamentary garrison of Dublin in battle at Ratman.
In the 1650th, after conquest of Ireland by Cromwell, two Catholics forbade to lodge in city land, but this law wasn't executed with all severity.
By the end of the 17th century, Dublin became the capital of Ireland, operated by a new English Protestant minority. Dublin, along with some parts of Ulster, by the beginning of the 18th century was the only part of Ireland where the most part of the population was made by Protestants.
The River Liffey, the largest river flowing across the territory of modern Dublin from the west on the east, divides the present city approximately into two equal halves, northern and southern.
The river flows into the Irish Sea. It long was a certain obstacle in view of the Marchioness from west side and Innimaff. But the marshiness of the river within centuries was gradually overcome by means of strengthenings of the river embankments and filling of swamps. In recent years, water level in the river rose a little. Climate of Dublin moderate in sea, with characteristic soft winters, in the cool summer and lack of sharp temperature differences. The maximum temperature in January -8 C, in July -20 C. The most solar months, June and July. In Dublin, twice less rainfall than in the Western Ireland, and quantity of the dropping out rainfall approximately same, as in London drops out. The most damp months of year is December and August, during each of which drops out from 70 form of rainfall above. The driest month, April, up to 45. The average annual amount of precipitation makes 762. It is less than in Sydney, New York and even in Dallas. Owing to a higher rate of width at which there is, Dublin daylight can be estimated for 19 hours, and short winter days last till 9 o'clock. Strong gusty winds sometimes affect Dublin, but in general in other parts of Ireland their presence is felt stronger than in the capital. Probability of strong winds exists for all year. It is highest in the winter, in particular between October and the last considerable case of strong wind, 42 m/s, was registered around Airfield Casement on December 24, 1997. There is also small temperature difference between the downtown and the suburb. Temperature in suburbs is 2-3 C lower than in the downtown. The coldest months December, January and February. Temperature in the summer in recent years was significantly higher than average indicators, for example 31 C in July 2006, that is more than 11 C over a usual maximum. It is explained by the general temperature increase the planet. From November to April also snow drops out, but he keeps a little more than 4-5 days. The hail drops out more often than snow, and his loss for winter and spring months is the most probable. Thunderstorms happen seldom and usually happen in the summer. The supreme authority of the city is the City Council. This body is representative. Elections to City Council are held every 5 years. 52 members of council are elected both from various political parties, and from among independent representatives of society. The Dublin City Council is the largest municipal authority in Ireland. Activities for amending bills, control of the city budget, administrative measures for development of the city, including supervision of roads, healthcare, water supply, culture, etc. belong to his powers. A key figure of City Council as executive authority is the City Managing Director. The central office occupies the building near the centre of Dublin, on the southern Liffey River embankment. Structural divisions of council are located in various cases. Council is headed by the city head carrying a title, the Lord Mayor. The Lord Mayor is elected once a year from among members of City Council, members of council. He coordinates interaction between various political forces presented in council and also acts as the representative both council and the city in general in external relations, including international. The Lord Mayor has own residence on Dawson Street, Mansion House. The city is broken into 5 administrative districts: Central, Southeast, Southern, Northwest, Northern. Economy and infrastructure. For the last 10-15 years, the standard of living in the city considerably increased. Also, the living wage rose. Dublin now on the 16th place among the most expensive cities of the planet. The 8th in Europe, apart from the Russian cities. However, here and one of the highest salaries in the world is more than in New York and London, but it is less than in Zurich, Geneva and Oslo. Historically, brewing probably was the leading branch of the Dublin industry. The well-known Guinness beer cooked in the city since 1759. However, recently here opened many production associations which are turning out pharmaceutical products. A number of the large American companies specializing in information and internet technologies opened the offices in Dublin, having formed the so-called region of Silicon Docks.
Microsoft, Google, Amazon, PayPal, Yahoo,
Facebook, LinkedIn, first of all treat these companies. The Intel and Hewlett-Packard companies have big plants in the county of Kildare, in 15 km to the west from Dublin. Recently, not the last place in economy of Dublin is taken also by banking. Citibank, Commerzbank have the offices in Dublin. Years of an economic boom led to growth of construction, which is today the chief supplier of jobs too. Nevertheless, in 2007 unemployment as in labor market the offer began to advance, demand increased. Today construction is conducted in main industrial areas in the downtown. Among higher educational institutions of the city there are 4 universities. The oldest and the most known of them, the Dublin University, better known for the division Trinity College. Public transport of Big Dublin is under authority of a number of transport companies, the majority of which are state or with participation of the state. Till 2009 control over public transport of Dublin exercised control of Transport of Dublin. In 2009 control was ceded National Transport Administration.
The Government of Ireland in 2005 announced the Programme of Development of Transport-21 City Transport,
in which it was planned to invest considerable means. But because of the global financial crisis of 2008 this program was closed up. The transport system of Dublin includes the electrified local trains, diesel local trains, trams and buses now. The system of uniform tickets acts on City Transport of Dublin. This system was introduced on December 12, 2011 on the basis of the electronic leap card. The number of users of Leap Card in December 2013 reached 384,689. National Transport Administration carries out interaction between different types of public transport of Dublin. Dublin ranks high in the history of literature as the city which presented to the world a set of bright literary talents. Here such writers as William Butler Yeats, George Bernard Shaw and Samuel Beckett were born Nobel Prize laureates on literature. Other famous writers and playwrights, poets and essayists natives of Dublin. Oscar Wilde, Jonathan Swift and creator of Dracula, Bram Stoker. But most of all, Dublin is known for works by James Joyce.
This writer with a world name, one of fathers of modernism in literature, is extremely popular in the homeland. About the relation of Irish to Joyce's creativity, it is possible to judge by the fact that the portrait of the writer was represented on the £10 note.
Works by the writer are full details of life and life of his contemporaries, inhabitants of the city.
Many of his characters are constructed on a prototype of really existing citizens, acquaintances and Joyce's relatives.
Dubliners, a collection of short stories of Joyce about persons and the characters typical for residents at the beginning of the 20th century. Action in his best-known work, Ulysses, happens entirely within Dublin. The novel is sated with topographical details, colorful pictures from life of the city and hints on events from his history. J.M. Singh, Sean, Brendan Bean, Maeve Binchy and Roddy Doyle, other widely famous authors who were born in Dublin. The biggest libraries and the literary museums of Ireland are in Dublin, including the National Museum of the Press of Ireland and National Library of Ireland. On a theatrical stage of Dublin, the whole group of the famous actors, including Niall Parcel, Brandon Gleeson, Stephen Ree, Colin Farrell and Gabriel Byrne played. In Dublin there are also four most known theatres of the country: Gaiety, Abbey, Olympia and Theatre Guive. Gaiety is known for the musical and opera performances. Abbey was founded in 1904 by a group of actors, including William Butler Yeats, future playwright. On Abbey's stage also plays by Bernard Shaw were put.
One of the main 2D cultural symbols of Dublin and all Ireland, world-famous rock group U.
In Dublin there is a State Museum of Heraldry founded in 1908 and which is one of the museums of this subject, oldest in the world, the National Museum of Ireland and the Irish Museum of Modern Art. In 1976 in Dublin the Dublin Cathedral Mosque, which became the first mosque in Ireland, opened. In 2003 on O'Connell Street, on the place of the blown-up monument to Nelson the monument the Dublin Needle was built. In Dublin the most various sports are developed. A distinguished Aviva Stadium at which competitions mainly in soccer and rugby, and Krug Park, were the finals of the Vserlandsky Championships on the Gaelic soccer among men and women, to a hurling and Camager held from sports sites. In the past the main stadium of Dublin was Lensholm Road, which was closed at the end of 2007 and took down, and on his place constructed Aviva. Besides these three stadiums, there are also arenas, Parc d'Alamont, Richmond Park, Tala and some other. The Irish League of the American Soccer plays West Dublin Rhinos, Salt Dublin Panthers, Dublin Rebels and U-City clubs. The main sports club of Straight Blast Gym, Ireland. On January 17, 2009 in the city the UF93 tournament was held, and on July 19, 2014 within UF there passed the duel. English. Russian between Conor McGregor and Diego Brandon.
The Gaelic sports matches. The Gaelic soccer, hurling, camig, are held at such stadiums as Parnell Park and Crook Park. The team of Dublin is an owner of a number of titles on each of sports, both the champion of Leinster and the Sirlandsky champion. In Dublin there is a large number of cricket clubs, Leinster, Clontarf, Pembroke, Phoenix, Marion, etc. The Aviva Stadium is the home arena of Combined Ireland on rugby and the Leinster club acting in the Pro Championship. Dublin also plays clubs, Clontarf, Lensown, Old Belvedere, Dublin University, Wanderers, and others, competing in regional Irish superiority. Soccer. The Aviva Stadium is the home arena of the national team of Ireland. In the city such eminent teams as Bohemian, St. Patrick's Athletic, Shamrock Rovers, and many others act. Clubs of Dublin on field hockey, Pembroke Wanderers, Inca and Clontarf. In Dublin there are many sites and monuments which age contains hundreds of years. One of the oldest monuments is the Dublin Castle, which was constructed as defensive works by order of the King Ion Besmelny in 1204, after Norman invasion into Ireland in 1169. The lot was generally complete by 1230 and is the typical construction of a Norman era, with the central square without dawns and surrounded from all directions with high fortifications with round towers on corners. Located in the southeast of Dublin, the loch forms a corner with external perimeter of the city, using the Poddle River as a natural obstacle. One of the latest city monuments is the Dublin Needle, his official name, Light Monument. It represents a conic spike from stainless steel 121.2 meters high and is located on O'Connell Street. Light Monument replaces Nelson Column, which was earlier standing on this place destroyed by a bomb in 1966 and symbolizes a role of Dublin in the 21st century. Light Monument was developed by the Ian Ritchie Architects Company. During the day the monument of light keeps steel color, and in twilight merges with the sky. In the basis and at top fires burn at night. Many tourists in Dublin visit Trinity College to look in Library of College at the Kelsky Book, the illustrated manuscript written by the Irish monks about 800 AD. One of the most signed sights of Dublin is Pupenny Bridge, the pedestrian bridge through the River Liffey, which is often photographed by tourists. The bridge received the name because originally pass on him was paid and cost a halfpenny. Other popular sites of the city include Guinness Storehouse, Manson House, official residence of the Lord Mayor of Dublin with 1715 Monument Anna of Libya, the heroine of the novel D. Joyce, Finnegan's Wakes, Molly Malone's Monument, Christchurch Church, St. Patrick's Cathedral, St. Francis of Regis Temple on Gardner Street, building of the Irish Customs and Aras and Uachtaráin, the residence of the President of Ireland. Types of power plants. Poolbeg generating station, which are visible from many places to the city, are also signed places of Dublin. Parks. Security of Dublin with green plantings in terms of square kilometre is more than in any other European capital. 2.96 hectares of public green plantings are the share of 1,000 inhabitants. At the same time 97% of residents live at distance no more than 300 meters from a park zone. The Dublin City Council manages more than 1,500 hectares of parks, 255 vacation spots, and grows up about 1,500 trees a year. In the city there are a lot of parks, the most known of them, Phoenix Park, Herbert Park. English. Russian and St. Stephen's Green.
The Phoenix Park is approximately in 3 km to the west from the downtown, to the north from the River Liffey. The perimeter of walls of the park makes 16 kilometers, and the area minus 707 hectares. It is one of the largest city parks in Europe. In the park extensive meadows and shady avenues are located, and since the 17th century in the park herds of wild fallow deer are grazed. In Phoenix Park there is also a residence of the President of Aras and Rachterane, in the building built in 1751, official residences of the Ambassador of the United States, the Ashtown Loch and the Dublin Zoo, one of the most known zoos in Europe. In Phoenix Park often there take place speeches of singers and musicians. The Park of St. Stephen's Green is located in one of the main shopping streets of Dublin, Grafton Street, and adjoins the shopping centre of the same name, and on the streets adjoining to him there are offices of public institutions and a final stop of the Green Line of the high-speed Luas tram. In a northern part of Dublin between the areas of Wrekenny and Clontarf there is St. Anne's Park.
The second largest city park in Dublin, which is a part of the site in 2 square kilometers belonging to family of Guinness, and the biggest city park is located on the island of Doles. In the Dublin Gulf. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.